Your 15-year-old just slammed their bedroom door in your face after you asked a simple question about homework. They used to tell you everything, but now you're lucky if you get more than one-word answers. You're watching them pull away, make questionable choices, and shut you out completely. Your instinct is to crack down harder, set more rules, and monitor their every move. But here's what most parents don't realize. The tighter you grip, the faster they'll run. What if I told you that the parenting approach that worked beautifully when your child was 8 will actually destroy your relationship with them as a teenager? The strategies that made you feel like a confident, competent parent during the elementary years can backfire spectacularly during adolescence, creating exactly the rebellion and disconnection you're trying to prevent. The teenage years don't have to be a battlefield. Research from the University of Illinois shows that teenagers who maintain close relationships with their parents have better mental health, make safer choices, and are actually more likely to come to you when they're in trouble. But here's the catch. Connection with teens requires a completely different approach than connection with younger children. It requires letting go of control while still maintaining influence. Today, I'm going to show you the exact framework that transforms combative relationships into collaborative partnerships. You'll learn why your natural parenting instincts are sabotaging your relationship with your teen, discover the 5 core principles of influence-based parenting, and get specific scripts you can use to open up communication channels that have been slammed shut. If you're tired of the constant power struggles, the eye rolls, and feeling like a stranger to the child you raised, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We share research-based strategies every week that bridge the gap between the parent you want to be and the relationship your teenager actually needs. The fundamental mistake most parents make is confusing control with safety. We think that if we can just monitor their phones closely enough, set strict enough curfews, and approve every friend and activity, we can keep them safe and steer them toward success. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The more you try to control a teenager, the less influence you actually have over the decisions that really matter. Teenagers are biologically programmed to seek independence and autonomy. Their brains are undergoing massive reconstruction, and part of that process involves individuating from parents and establishing their own identity. When we try to maintain the same level of control we had when they were younger, we're working against their developmental needs, which creates an impossible situation for everyone. The solution isn't to abandon boundaries or become a permissive friend-parent. It's to shift from a control-based relationship to an influence-based relationship, where your teenager chooses to stay connected because they value your input, not because they fear your consequences. The first core principle of influence-based parenting is consultant, not manager. When your child was young, you were their manager. You decided what they ate, when they slept, who they played with, and how they spent their time. This was appropriate because they lacked the developmental capacity to make these decisions safely, but teenagers need you to shift into a consultant role. What does this look like in practice? A manager says, you need to study for 2 hours every night and I'll be checking your grades weekly. A consultant says, I noticed you're struggling in math. What support do you think would be helpful? Should we look into tutoring options together? See the difference? The consultant acknowledges the teen's autonomy while still offering guidance and support. This shift is uncomfortable for many parents because it requires trusting your teenager to make decisions that might not align with what you would choose. But here's the reality. They're going to make those decisions anyway, either with your input or without it. When you position yourself as a consultant, they're much more likely to actually seek your advice, because they don't feel like you're trying to control them. The second principle is curiosity over judgment. When your teen comes home with a failing grade, dyed hair, or news about a friendship breakup, your first instinct might be to lecture, criticize, or immediately problem solve. But teenagers interpret these responses as judgment, which makes them shut down and stop sharing information with you. Instead, approach every situation with genuine curiosity. Ask open-ended questions like, what happened there? Or, how are you feeling about that? Or, what do you think your options are? These questions communicate that you're interested in understanding their perspective rather than imposing your own. They also activate your teen's critical thinking skills instead of triggering their defensiveness. Here's what this looks like with real examples. Your daughter comes home and mentions she's thinking about quitting soccer after playing for 8 years. The judgment response is, "That's ridiculous. You can't quit now. You've invested so much time, and it'll look terrible on college applications." The curious response is, "That's interesting. You've loved soccer for so long. What's making you think about quitting? Tell me more about what's going on." The third principle is influence through relationship, not rules. Rules are necessary for teenagers. They need clear expectations about safety, respect, and responsibilities. But if the only time you interact with your teen is to enforce rules, you're a police officer, not a parent. The relationship is what gives you influence when it really matters. This means investing in connection time that has nothing to do with rules, responsibilities, or problems. Watch their favorite show with them even if you don't understand it. Drive them places and use the car time for casual conversation. Show interest in their world without interrogating them. Learn about their friends, their music, their social media interests. These moments of genuine connection are deposits in your relationship bank account that you'll draw on during difficult conversations. Research from the Search Institute shows that teenagers who feel they have at least one adult who genuinely knows and cares about them are significantly less likely to engage in risky behaviors. That adult should be you, but you have to earn that position through consistent, non-judgmental presence in their lives. The fourth principle is natural consequences over imposed punishments. Teenagers learn best from experiencing the real-world results of their choices rather than from arbitrary punishments you create. When you impose consequences that have no logical connection to their behavior, you become the bad guy they need to rebel against. When you let natural consequences teach the lesson, reality becomes the teacher and you remain the supportive guide. For example, if your teen refuses to do laundry, the natural consequence is they run out of clean clothes, not that you take away their phone. If they procrastinate on a school project, the natural consequence is a lower grade or a stressful all-nighter, not that you ground them for a month. Your role shifts from enforcer to supportive observer who helps them process what they learned from the experience. This doesn't mean you never intervene or set boundaries. Safety issues, illegal activities, and situations that could have permanent consequences still require parental action. But for everyday choices about responsibility and time management, natural consequences are far more effective teachers than your lectures or punishments. The fifth principle is validate feelings, direct behavior. This is perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of parenting teenagers. Many parents think that if they validate their teen's emotions, they're condoning whatever behavior came with those emotions. But validation and permission are completely different things. When your son is furious because you won't let him go to an unsupervised party, you can say, "I understand you're really angry and disappointed. It's frustrating when your friends can do something you can't. And I'm still not comfortable with an unsupervised party." You've acknowledged his feelings without changing your boundary. This approach keeps communication channels open, even during disagreements. Now let's talk about specific communication strategies that actually work with teenagers. The first strategy is timing matters more than content. If you need to have a serious conversation, don't ambush your teen the moment they walk in the door or when they're already upset about something else. Instead, ask, "When would be a good time for us to talk about your grades? I'd like to hear your perspective." The second strategy is short conversations are better than long lectures. Teenagers tune out after about 90 seconds of parental talking. If you find yourself going on and on about responsibility, choices, or consequences, you've already lost them. Make your point clearly and briefly, then stop talking and listen to their response. The third strategy is use I statements instead of you accusations. Instead of, "You never tell me anything anymore," try, "I miss our conversations, and I'd love to hear about what's going on in your life." Instead of, "You're so irresponsible with your phone," try, "I'm worried about your screen time and I'd like us to figure out a plan together." The fourth strategy is pick your battles strategically. Not every issue deserves a confrontation. Ask yourself, is this a safety issue, a values issue, or a preference issue? Safety and values are worth standing firm on. Preferences about hair color, clothing style, or room organization? Those are opportunities to give your teen autonomy and save your influence for what really matters. The fifth strategy is repair is more important than perfection. You will lose your temper, say things you regret, and handle situations poorly. When this happens, apologize genuinely and model the accountability you want to see from them. "I'm sorry I yelled earlier. I was frustrated and I handled that wrong. Can we start over?" Let's address the specific challenges that keep parents up at night. Social media is often the biggest battleground between parents and teens. The control-based approach is monitoring everything, demanding passwords, and restricting access as punishment. The influence-based approach involves collaborative conversations about online safety, digital citizenship, and balanced screen time. Start by acknowledging that social media is how teenagers maintain friendships and social connections in today's world. Trying to eliminate it completely is like trying to ban your teen from having friends. Instead, have ongoing conversations about what they're seeing online, how it makes them feel, and how to navigate difficult situations like cyberbullying or inappropriate content. Establish some non-negotiable boundaries around safety. No meeting strangers from online, no sharing personal information publicly, and devices stay out of bedrooms at night. But within those boundaries, give them autonomy over their accounts and trust them to make good decisions. When they make mistakes, use them as teaching opportunities rather than reasons to take everything away. Dating and romantic relationships are another major source of parental anxiety. Your instinct might be to forbid dating, interrogate potential partners, or dismiss their feelings as puppy love. But teenagers who feel like they can't talk to you about relationships will simply hide them from you, which is far more dangerous than being open about who they're interested in. Instead, create a judgment-free space where they can talk about crushes, relationships, and heartbreak. Share your own stories about teenage relationships and what you learned from them. When they're going through a breakup, resist the urge to say, "I told you so," or "There are plenty of fish in the sea." Just listen, validate, and be present with their pain. Set clear expectations about physical boundaries, communication, and respect in relationships, but do it through conversation rather than rules imposed from above. Ask them what they think a healthy relationship looks like. Discuss consent, mutual respect, and red flags for unhealthy dynamics. These conversations give you influence over their choices, even when you're not present. Peer pressure and friend drama are constant challenges during adolescence. The control response is trying to choose their friends or forbidding them from hanging out with certain people. But teenagers will find ways to see whoever they want, and forbidden friendships often become more appealing. The influence approach acknowledges that they need to learn how to navigate difficult social situations and make good choices about friendships. When you're concerned about a friend, express your observations without attacking the person. "I've noticed you seem more stressed since you started hanging out with this group. What's your experience been?" This opens dialogue rather than triggering defensiveness. Help them develop critical thinking about peer influence by asking questions. How do you feel after spending time with them? Do these friends bring out the best in you? What would you do if they wanted you to do something that made you uncomfortable? These conversations build their internal decision-making skills rather than just relying on your external rules. Academic struggles often create intense power struggles between parents and teens. The control approach involves constant monitoring, punishments for bad grades, and rewards for good ones. But this makes school your issue instead of theirs, and removes their intrinsic motivation to succeed. The influence approach recognizes that grades belong to your teenager, not to you. Express your expectations clearly, offer support and resources, and then step back and let them experience the consequences of their effort level. When grades slip, have a curious conversation about what's happening rather than immediately imposing consequences. If you're realizing that your relationship with your teenager has already become damaged by control-based parenting, don't despair. It's never too late to rebuild trust and connection, but it requires humility, consistency, and patience. The first step is acknowledging to your teen that you want to change your approach. This might sound like, "I've been thinking about how I've been parenting you, and I realize I've been too controlling. I want to do better and treat you more like the young adult you're becoming." This conversation will likely be met with skepticism at first. Your teen has learned not to trust that change will last, so they'll test whether you really mean it. They might push boundaries harder initially to see if you'll revert to old patterns. Stay consistent with your new approach, even when it's uncomfortable. Every time you respond with curiosity instead of control, you're making a deposit in the rebuilding process. The second step is giving them some quick wins that demonstrate your new approach. Find a few areas where you've been overly controlling and immediately give them more autonomy. Maybe it's letting them choose their own clothes without commentary, stopping the daily interrogation about homework, or giving them more freedom with their weekend plans. These concrete changes show you're serious about shifting the dynamic. The third step is being patient with the reconnection process. Teenagers who've been controlled often develop protective walls that don't come down overnight. They might continue giving one-word answers or spending most of their time in their rooms. Don't take it personally and don't give up. Keep showing up with genuine interest and no agenda. Eventually, those walls will start to crack. Now let's talk about the balance between connection and boundaries, because this is where many parents get confused. Staying connected without controlling doesn't mean becoming a permissive parent who never says no. Teenagers actually need clear boundaries. Research shows they feel safer and more secure when they know where the lines are. The difference is how you establish and enforce those boundaries. Control-based boundaries are imposed unilaterally. You're not allowed to go to that party and that's final. Influence-based boundaries are collaborative when possible. I'm not comfortable with an unsupervised party. Let's talk about what would make both of us feel okay about your weekend plans. Sometimes the answer is still no, but the process of discussion shows respect for their growing autonomy. Non-negotiable boundaries should be limited to genuine safety issues. No drinking and driving, no illegal activities, respectful treatment of family members, and maintaining basic responsibilities. Everything else should be negotiable to some degree. The more autonomy you can give them in smaller decisions, the more influence you maintain in bigger ones. If you're finding value in this different approach to parenting teenagers and want more strategies for navigating these challenging years, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We share evidence-based parenting insights every week that help you stay connected to your teen while preparing them for independent adulthood. One of the hardest aspects of parenting teenagers is managing your own anxiety about their choices and future. We want so desperately to protect them from pain, failure, and consequences that we try to control everything, but overprotection actually undermines their development of resilience and problem-solving skills. Your job during the teenage years isn't to prevent all mistakes, it's to create a safe relationship where they can process their mistakes and learn from them. Some of their most valuable learning will come from experiences you wish you could have prevented. When they experience friendship betrayal, academic setbacks, or romantic heartbreak, your supportive presence is far more valuable than your ability to shield them from pain. As we wrap up, I want you to shift your perspective on what success looks like during the teenage years. Success isn't a teenager who never challenges you, makes perfect decisions, or shares every detail of their life with you. Success is a teenager who knows they can come to you when they're in trouble, who considers your perspective even when making their own choices, and who maintains a connection with you while also establishing their independence. The teenage years are preparation for launch, not a continuation of childhood. Every year, your teenager should be making more of their own decisions and experiencing more of the natural consequences of those decisions. By the time they're 18, they should have extensive practice with managing their time, money, relationships, and responsibilities with minimal parental intervention. This gradual release of control is terrifying for parents because it means watching them make mistakes you could have prevented. But teenagers who are overly controlled and then suddenly released into complete independence at 18 are far more likely to struggle with serious issues. The ones who have been practicing autonomy with your guidance throughout adolescence are much better prepared for adult life. Remember that your teenager's behavior is not a reflection of your worth as a parent. They're going to make questionable fashion choices, have bad days, struggle with friend drama, and occasionally be moody and difficult. This is developmentally normal, not evidence that you've failed. In fact, teenagers who feel safe enough to be their authentic, messy selves at home are often the ones who have the strongest family relationships. The relationship you build with your teenager during these years will set the tone for your adult relationship with them. Parents who successfully navigate adolescence with influence instead of control often find that their adult children actively seek their advice, share important life decisions with them, and maintain close emotional bonds. Those who rely on control often find themselves cut off or held at arm's length once their children gain independence. One final thought about the emotional work this requires from you as a parent. Shifting from control to influence means dealing with your own anxiety, fear, and need for certainty. It means letting go of the illusion that you can control outcomes and accepting that your teenager is their own person who will make their own choices. This often brings up unresolved issues from your own adolescence. Maybe you made choices you regret and you're desperate to prevent your child from repeating them. Maybe you had overly strict parents and you're terrified of becoming them. Or maybe you had permissive parents and you're overcompensating. Whatever your history, awareness of how it influences your parenting helps you make more intentional choices. Consider this stage of parenting as an opportunity for your own growth. You're learning to tolerate discomfort, release control, and trust the foundation you built during your child's earlier years. You're practicing the skills of listening without fixing, being present without directing, and loving without conditions. These are valuable life skills that extend far beyond parenting. The teenage years are challenging, but they're also full of incredible moments. You get to watch your child develop their own opinions, discover their passions, and become the person they're meant to be. When you release the need to control and instead focus on maintaining connection, you become privileged to witness and support this transformation. Your teenager needs you just as much now as they did when they were little. They just need you differently. They need your wisdom without your judgment, your support without your control, and your presence without your agenda. When you can offer these things consistently, you build a relationship that will last far beyond these turbulent years.